Welcome to Madlit Musings, the podcast where we dive into the minds of authors, exploring the profound realms of faith, social issues, and the delightful world of entertainment. I'm your host, Jamie Jo Wright, and on this literary journey, you never quite know what you're going to get. Hey there, Madlit enthusiasts. Our podcast is sponsored by the esteemed Baker Publishing Group. Whether you're into heartwarming romance, gripping suspense, or deep dives into matters of faith and society, Baker Publishing Group has it all. With Revell and Bethany House Publishers under their umbrella, they bring you a diverse array of books that will captivate your mind and stir your soul. Check out all of their line at www.bakerbookhouse.com. Hey everyone, it is Jamie Jo right here at Madlit Musings, and today I have back with us a Madlit Musings favorite, Carrie Turansky. Welcome back, Carrie.
Well, thank you, Jamie Jo. I'm glad to be here and looking forward to our conversation.
I'm looking forward to our conversation too. I have a feeling it's going to be fun because your book is already intriguing me just by the cover and everything. So that's always good. Cover love. I'm the type of person, like if I go into a bookstore and the cover's like really good, I don't even really worry about reading the back.
Okay.
I'm a risk taker.
Draws you in.
Cover is what draws me in for sure. But so you are, just so readers, if they're not familiar with who Carrie Turansky is, you are an author who has won the Carroll Award, the International Digital Award, and the Holt Medallion. And you live in New Jersey, so you're on the East Coast.
I am. Yep. We're just cooking to death over here. It's very hot. Yes. It's hot everywhere, pretty much in the U.S. this week.
Yeah. Now, I've been to New Jersey once, and it was kind of like the drive-through. And it makes me sad because I don't feel like I've ever given New Jersey my full attention. And I feel like I've been cheated out of life a little bit.
Well, we are the Garden State, and there are a lot of beautiful areas. But when you do drive through on 95, especially from the airport down south, it's like a lot of industrial, so you don't get the best view. But I live in a really pretty suburban area right across from a park that has a lake, lots of fish and birds, and we have eagles there, and go blueberry picking and flower picking. I love blueberries. So it's a beautiful area.
So, okay, I know we're not talking about your book right now. We're talking about New Jersey, but this would be bad because my history is bad, but was New Jersey one of the original colonies, like in that area, or when did New Jersey become a state?
Yes, New Jersey was one of the original 13 colonies, and we have a lot of colonial history here.
Okay.
And every right around Christmas time, they reenact George Washington crossing the Delaware to come and beat the Germans and take over during the Revolution. So we have a lot of colonial history and interesting places to see.
Speaking of George Washington crossing the Delaware to beat the Germans, I was on Ancestry.com because I've been tracing my family history through on my mom's side. And I found out that I think 4 times, I don't know, sometimes on their great-grandfather was at that battle.
Oh.
And I was all excited because I'm like, yes, a revolutionary. No, he fought for the Germans.
Oh.
Oh no. That wasn't what I thought I was going to find. He was one of the Hessian soldiers. I'm like, oh no. So my apologies to New Jersey for my family.
Okay. Well, we won anyway, so.
Yeah, you did. All right. Well, let's not get hung up on colonial history because that's not what you're writing. You are writing and releasing a book titled A Token of Love that's set in 1885 and present day.
Yes.
Correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right. So you're dual time, just like me. Yay!
Yeah, I do enjoy doing that. My last one, A Legacy of Longdale Manor, was my first dual time, and this is my second. And I'm going to go back to writing straight historical. I think it's so challenging.
I was going to say, you haven't always written split time, have you?
No, I did a lot of straight English historical first, and then my last book, I switched over to try this. And that book was, it just fell together very easily. This book was a lot more difficult. My poor editor. Anyway, we finally got it together where it was working, but there were certain things that you couldn't know in the contemporary time until they happened in the historical. and trying to even it out so that it had a natural flow back and forth was a
Yeah.
little more challenging this time. So I was like, I think I'm going to write straight historical next.
Oh, that's cool. I applaud you though for trying something that's outside of your natural wheelhouse, because the split time has always been my wheelhouse. And
Mm-hmm.
I actually just wrote a book for another publisher that's coming out in 2025
Oh,
that was all contemporary. There was no historical. And
okay.
I kind of felt like you just described, but the reverse.
Okay.
Because I felt like I can tell this story if I could just go back and do with the thread of history that's in my mind, but I can't. I have to, so
Yes.
how do I lay this out?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
One
So
has its challenges,
it
right?
does.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right.
Okay. So a token of love, first of all, like I mentioned at the beginning, the cover's gorgeous. And there is, yes, there's the cover. Look at that.
Yes.
I love it. I love it. So we were touching a little bit before I hit record on the token, but before we go there, why don't you kind of give us an overview of what the book's about so that readers know what we're talking about?
Okay, so it is dual time, 1885 and present day. It's set in London. And the things that draw them together are just there is the first children's charity home in London was called the Foundling Hospital, even though it wasn't like illness hospital, it stood for
Right.
hospitality back then in the
Hmm.
17 and 1800s. And so this was a home where women who were in unfortunate circumstances could take babies and they could be, given over there. And some of the mothers did not know how to read or write, and so they would leave an identifier, some kind of a small item, and they call these tokens,
Okay.
and they were left in case the mother's situation changed. That could be something she could describe and come back and hopefully reclaim her baby or her child. And so I just thought that idea of the tokens and the mothers leaving that was just really gripped my heart. So when I
Yeah.
heard about that, I thought, oh, I'm going to look into that and try to
Hmm.
learn more about the Foundling Hospital. So that's kind of where the story sprang from. So there is a historical heroine who is the aunt of a baby that was abandoned there, left there, turned
Hmm.
over by the mother. And then when she's 8 years old, the mother is gonna. It says she wants to reclaim there, so the aunt's trying to help her reclaim her daughter.
Okay.
But then when she goes to the Foundling Hospital, they tell her the baby died. But
Oh.
then a cleaning lady says, as the aunt is leaving, that that's not true, that the little girl was there until just recently when she
Mm.
disappeared. And she's not the first pretty little girl to disappear from the Foundling
Ooh.
Hospital. So then the aunt, is trying to search for her niece, and she ends up teaming up with an investigative journalist
Hmm.
who is looking into the disappearance of many young girls and women in London at that time. So it deals with the whole area of human trafficking in the
Okay.
Victorian era. And then in the contemporary story, it's focuses on the heroine is the temporary director of the Foundling Museum, which
Hmm.
is a real museum in London now that tells the history of the Foundling Hospital.
Okay.
So I had her. I wanted to weave in human trafficking in contemporary
Hmm.
time because, of course, it's
Hmm.
obviously still an important issue.
Right.
So I had her. They hire a man to make a film about the history of the hospital as part of their gala presentation to raise funds for the museum.
Hmm.
And the as the guy is looking into the history, he learns about these missing girls,
Mm.
and it was sort of a hidden thing. And so the director, she's shocked by this, and of course is trying to decide what's the right thing to do. Should she make it known? What will
Right.
happen to their supporters if they realize this is part of the history? How can they, be honest, but yet,
Hmm.
protect themselves? So
Hmm.
it's just kind of a weaving together of that mystery, what
Yeah.
happened in the past, and how it is revealed in both those stories. So that's a little bit
Yeah.
about it. It's kind of involved story, so it's a little hard to
I
make
love
it
it. I
little
love it.
little
Yeah, that's great.
snippet.
And well, yeah, I'm sure there's so many threads and lines that weave through both. I totally know what you're saying there.
Yeah.
So now the girls that were disappearing from the foundling home, is that based on actual history too, or is that kind of the fictional part of the plot?
Well, there were many girls that were disappearing at this time
Okay.
from the poor areas of London, and there was a journalist who was looking into it, and he wrote a stirring series of articles that just turned the town upside down and changed the laws, that kind of thing. So that part is true.
Okay.
The cooking it to the Foundling Hospital is fictional.
Sure.
So
Yep.
that part is a step over into the fictional part. But I thought when I read both of those things as I was doing research about the era, I thought that would fit well. And it did happen that there were young girls that were taken. So I thought, okay, we'll just make it from the Foundling Hospital.
Yeah. Well, and I've heard that wasn't, I mean, not necessarily for this foundling home in history, but in some orphanages, even in the United States, that there was a lot of black market selling of orphans and foundlings that weren't associated with other families. So that isn't necessarily a fictional idea.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So when you were researching all of that, then did you come across any like real life stories that helped support, like, there was this one person, et cetera, et cetera?
Well, what I found was what I always like to look for in my research are Christians who are making their faith is making a difference in the issues of the day. That's really important to me. So often I'll find a person who is doing something or helping in a particular way, and their life will inspire the story. So in this book, I read about a woman named Josephine Butler, who was an activist at that time and who spoke publicly and wrote pamphlets and articles to try to change the laws to protect women and girls, actually to raise the age of when it was, so that they couldn't be taken away as young girls. So hopefully it would protect the girls and the young women. So she was very active and, did a lot to help women who were caught in unfortunate certain circumstances like that. And I was surprised that there was such strong opposition to her. And it was even like violence. Men would come and disrupt her talks, and she had like hide in the, inside and different things like that. So it was a very interesting time, but she really stirred up a lot of controversy and kind of brought it to the surface, because on one side of society it was very like, nobody talks about this, don't even discuss what's happening in the poorer parts of London where people would be taken advantage of, and then but she was somebody who came from that side, society, and she was able to speak about it and stood up. So I actually put her in the book. I had the ladies in the book are trying to get the girls released from one brothel, and so she comes with them and they have a march. And so I kind of acted out in the story what actually kind of things she did, that she took a stand, and some people were violently opposed to what she was doing and trying to protect their businesses or whatever. So pretty
those are some of the unsung heroes of history.
Right. Yeah. And she was very effective. She really did change a lot of laws, and those journalists too, their articles brought it all to light, even though it was, and they sold so many newspapers when they were doing those articles about the missing girls and what was behind all this, that they ran out of newsprint. They had to like get newsprint from other countries and that kind of thing.
Wow.
It was a huge stir. It just caused a huge stir, and there was like protests. And so it was really interesting just to see, people's response, and then, the faith behind the people who wanted to protect women and girls. So that was very interesting to me.
Yeah. That's super interesting that they ran out of newsprint. I mean, that right there, that kind of tells me like the disassociation the upper class culture really did have at the time from what was going on in lower class, and how journalism was bringing that kind of an expose, really.
Yeah, it was a time when journalism was really changing to become, in fact, this person that I kind of model my hero after, he was like one of the first people to have this new investigative journalism where they would actually go and interview instead of just, telling the, the facts of what happened or whatever, really seeking out the truth and investigating what was going on.
So this was like the first Dateline.
Yeah. Like that. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that never dawned on me though, really. I kind of always assumed journalists would interview people, but I guess back then a lot of them were more of the narrator, where they just told the story.
Yep, that was a lot of what it was, but then this was a real switch. Okay. And the people, that were starting to do that type of journalism were really trying to use it to change society and make
Hmm.
things better, that kind of thing. So it's pretty
Yeah,
interesting. Yeah.
that is really interesting. Okay, and then in the present day, you have Janelle Spencer,
Hmm.
who's running the Foundling Museum, and then Jonas Conrad, who's the filmmaker who arrives to document all of that.
Hmm.
Now, it says on the cover copy their collaboration takes a surprising turn as they uncover the articles. Now, how does that touch into the present day issues then of trafficking? Can we
Yeah.
talk
So
about
I
that a
wanted to
little?
figure out how could I tie that together. So
Yeah.
what I did was I had Janelle kind of takes under her wing one of the young volunteers who's going to work at the museum that summer.
Okay.
And she's the niece of a neighbor. And um, this young girl, she's actually trying to be set up to be trafficked. So I have
Mm-hmm.
her, what's happening to her, kind of in the background of the story, just to bring to light for teenagers and even other people maybe a little older who
Mm-hmm.
might be sucked in by somebody online and not be
Right.
aware of how they set you up. So
Right.
kind of play that out in the
Right.
story, how she reacts to what's going on with her
Mm-hmm.
dad and stepmom,
Yeah.
and then how they actually end up protecting her so that she's not trafficked.
Right. Right.
But
Right.
it's just kind of bringing it into today that it's still an issue,
Yeah.
and maybe to warn people who read the book that to beware of
Mm-hmm.
online relationships, what to look for, that kind of thing.
Yeah. And I do think that's so critical. I mean, I have a teenage daughter myself.
Mhm.
But then I think one of the misnomers with trafficking, and I don't know if you noticed this too, it's definitely there where a woman gets trafficked, disappears, and just vanishes forever.
Mhm.
But there's a lot of other types of trafficking that are very localized to a specific area in a town. Um, I knew a young woman who was groomed by a boyfriend locally, and she disappeared for about a year, and she was found locally, but she had been trafficked within a
Mhm.
local regional environment. So it's not always the dramatic, oh, girls taken and shipped overseas to the, overseas wherever. It can happen right here and be trafficking
Yeah.
right in your backyard and not know that it's going on. So
Yes. Yeah, that's true.
yeah, it's very, very, very critical and heavy thematic elements. But I'm
It
assuming
is.
your book is not dark and heavy either. So
No, no. Yeah, my books are not like super dark.
right.
So they have happy endings, they have
Hmm.
romance, they have faith elements, and hopefully, you're learning from the experiences of the
Right.
characters, but
Right.
it's not so heavy that you would be put off by it, I don't think.
Yeah, yeah. You're not reading a thriller novel or something really
No, I don't write spooky thriller.
dark and gothic.
Nope. Nope, mine are more
Oh,
lighter type of writing.
that's so fun. So as you're writing this story and you're dealing with some heavy themes, but you're obviously not wanting to go super dark either. How do you wrap the spiritual element and the spiritual threads through a book like that then? Especially with two time periods.
Yeah. So what I try to do is just give my characters problems and issues that they're going through. And then I just try to think of creative and different ways that they might learn how would God work in their life to help
Mm,
them through this issue? How would he show them the truth if there's some kind of lie they believe or some kind of, false thing that's holding them up from whatever he wants for them. So I
mhm,
try to think of creative ways. How does God work in my life? How does he work in my family and my friends' lives? And then try to weave that in a natural way. I mean, faith is really key in my life. It's not usually difficult for me. I
right,
almost have
right.
to hold back a little bit. Like I
Yeah,
don't want to be too over the top with it, but um, I just try to weave in how I
right.
think God would help them with that problem, whatever they're going through, and
Yeah,
then see what he brings as I'm writing.
right. That'd be an encouragement to readers who are reading it.
Yes, I
Um,
hope so. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's always kind of nice too when an author doesn't have a specific, for lack of a better word, a specific agenda, like they're trying to get this specific idea across,
Mhm.
because then as a reader, you can read the book, and as a Christian reader, you can really allow the Lord to take your heart in the direction that it needs to go based on the story that you're reading. And that's always kind of interesting. I don't know if you've had that where you'll get an email from someone and they're like, oh, this meant so much to me because of this. And you're like, oh, I didn't even know I wrote that theme into the book.
Yeah, I have had that.
Yeah.
And it's really neat to see how God will use stories like that. And one time I remember I had a young woman write to me an email and she said, I really liked your book. And she told me some different things she liked. And it's really helping me because I don't really know how to pray, but I had some prayers in the book. And she was like, I can learn now more how to pray. And I'm just like, wow, thank you, God, that,
Wow.
you could use it that way. And
Kidding.
I know people have different levels of faith that they include in their stories.
Hmm.
Mine always have pretty strong faith threads. They do have, if I feel like my character needs to pray, I have them pray.
Yeah.
And,
Hmm.
sometimes a friend will share, some kind of meaningful teaching or something from scripture. So, I do weave that in and I do hope it's meaningful for my
Right.
readers.
Right. So, also, along with this foundling home, you made a comment before I hit record, so I want to go back to that. You
Mhm.
said that you saw the actual tokens that were
Yeah.
used. So, you've actually been to this museum or
Yes.
London, or tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, last January, my husband and I spent just a week in London, and we spent a good part of one day at the Foundling Museum. So I'd really encourage anybody who goes to London to pop in and visit it because it's so interesting. The Foundling Hospital itself has closed down I
Okay.
think in the 1960s, and now pretty much kids that are in care go into foster homes, that kind of thing. But they have just a really interesting museum, and there's a beautiful lit up
Hmm.
display that
Yeah.
has several of the little tokens,
Mm.
things that the mothers left. So you can see those. And then there are also a lot of paintings and sculptures and artwork because the original Foundling Hospital, a lot of the key supporters of it when it started were artists and musicians. In
Really?
fact, the musician Handel, who wrote
Hmm.
Handel's Messiah, he
Hmm.
was a very key supporter and he gave an organ and played a special concert at the Foundling Hospital. And when he wrote his will, he put an original copy of Handel's Messiah as a gift to the Foundling Hospital. And on the third
Wow.
floor of the museum, they have a special Handel room. And you
Mm.
can sit in the chair in there and you can listen to different parts of the music and they collect all kinds of history about Handel there. So people who are studying Handel and music will come there for that part. But the bottom two floors and the basement, there's like art displays and then just all kinds of interesting um, information about the Foundling Hospital
Okay.
and what it was like and the children's stories.
Mm.
And it was very moving to see that and to think about all the kids that had passed through there and,
Hmm.
um, what their lives were like and
Yeah.
how that was an important place for children.
Kind of makes you wonder, like in 100 or 200 years, what museums are going to look like about our lives,
Yeah.
doesn't it?
Yeah.
But and then I was thinking too about those tokens that you mentioned, and the thing that was striking me as you were talking was, if you think about a young mother who's leaving her child there and leaving a token, there's a lot of heartbreak really wrapped up in that tangible item, because contrary to how I would picture an orphanage where a child's kind of dropped off and unwanted, it's almost like under duress, I'm leaving the infant that I wish I could keep. Therefore, I'm going to leave this in case something changes and I can come back.
Yeah. Yeah, and I tried to really capture that kind of a
Okay.
feeling in the historical part where you hear this story of this young woman who was ran away with a soldier and then
Hmm.
he abandoned her and then she had this baby and she couldn't work, if she didn't can't care for the baby. So she gave
Right.
the baby over to the Foundling Hospital
Yeah.
and then was never able to reclaim her. But by the time the kids were like 8 and then up, they would go out as apprentices. And so the mother knows that if she doesn't reclaim the child before the child turns 8, she may never find the child. So
Wow.
that's why she's sick and she calls on her
Yeah.
sister and she's sorry for abandoning everything and
Hmm.
doing the wrong kind of life and stuff. And the sister's forgiving and takes her sister in and she takes up this cause to find her
Hmm.
niece and
Wow.
bring her back. And so the token that she has is one thing that she can show
Hmm.
to identify her niece. So
Yeah.
it's kind of
Wow.
meaningful in that way.
And apprenticed at 8 years old.
Yeah,
That's so
yeah,
little.
I know that was in the early days. I think the age went up a little bit as
Yeah.
they moved on. But they said by 8 they could take them out and they could go. work for somebody. So
I can barely get my 14-year-old to clean the bathroom.
yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well, this is called A Token of Love. It's by Carrie Turansky. It releases September 3rd. It's a dual time historical and present day fiction that interweaves a story of two women whose lives intertwine through their shared pursuit of love, truth, and justice.
Mm.
So make sure, readers who are listening, you rush out and get this. And also stay in touch with Carrie. What's the best way for readers to do that?
So I love to connect with readers. And of course, you can find a lot of info about me and my books at my website, which is just my name, carrieturansky.com. And then if you are looking on social media, I'm probably the most active on Facebook or Instagram. So you can catch me there and see what's new.
Sounds great. Well,
Yeah.
Carrie, thank you so much for being here
Yes.
and telling me about something I never even knew about in history. So this is pretty cool. I like that.
Okay. Thanks, Jamie.
Thank you for joining Madlit Musings, where every conversation is a journey and every book is a new adventure. Subscribe now on your favorite podcast player or check us out on YouTube, and let's explore the fascinating intersection of faith, society, and storytelling together.